Have you ever wondered how to exponentially grow your real estate portfolio? Well, today we dive into a topic that might just be the answer you're looking for. Get ready to explore the intriguing world of the 1031 exchange, a powerful strategy for real estate investors. Our special guest, Sloan Kimball, CEO of Northwest Exchange, brings a wealth of knowledge from his journey as a lifelong real estate investor and former CFO of a bank. In this episode, Sloan demystifies the concept of 1031 exchanges, discussing how they can significantly reduce capital gains taxes and supercharge your real estate portfolio growth. We'll also touch upon the critical rules and timelines involved in executing a successful exchange, providing invaluable insight for both seasoned and budding investors alike. And before we jump into the enlightened conversation, a quick shout out to our sponsor, inspectify.com. Welcome to a new era of property inspections brought to you by inspectify.com. Whether you are flipping a home or making a cash offer on your next property to grow your portfolio, inspectify.com ensures your property's potential is fully realized. Precision inspections informed by robust data adapts to your individual needs, setting a new standard in the inspection industry. Inspectify.com even provides a key intel on permits and appliances to future-proof your property. Spanning the nation, Inspectify.com's extensive network promises swift inspections within 48 hours. Visit Inspectify.com today for inspections that blend tradition with technology. Choose Inspectify.com when every detail counts. And that brings me to today's investor highlight, which is to continue to learn about all the ways you can leverage real estate to offset your taxes. Today, we dive into the world of 1031 exchanges. Named after the tax code, they allow investors to defer capital gains taxes on the exchange of like-kind properties. This strategy can lead to a substantial tax savings, making it a valuable tool for real estate portfolio growth. The 1031 exchange process is precise and requires adherence to specific rules and deadlines. For instance, you have 45 days from the sale of your property to identify potential replacement properties and 180 days to complete the purchase. Engaging with a 1031 exchange facilitator or qualified intermediary is essential for navigating the complexities of these transactions. Professionals like Sloan, who we chat with today, can provide critical guidance and ensure compliance with IRS regulations. Remember, real estate investing is a long-term game. While they may offer immediate tax benefits, understanding the implications on future property sales and estate planning is critical. Remember, every investment scenario is unique, so consult with experts like Sloan to tailor these strategies to your specific situation. All right, get ready for a full-packed episode of geeky real estate investment talk as Sloan and I dive into the world of the 1031 exchange. And with that, on with the show. All right, welcome back to the Washington State Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm excited to be joined today by Sloan, who is a CEO of Northwest Exchange. Sloan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, well, glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get started by talking a little bit, telling the listeners a brief history about how you ended up being the CEO of the Northwest Exchange.
Well, basically, I've been a lifelong real estate investor. Back in my past, I was a CFO for a bank, and I actually had Northwest Exchange was a friend of mine and a client of the bank's.
Okay.
And I was always fascinated by the business that he was running. After the crash of 2008, he was deciding he was going to get out of the business, and my brother, who is a CPA, and I decided we were going to buy it from him.
Awesome. And now, how long has that been? When did you take it over then?
Right, basically end of 2008, early 2009.
Oh, nice. Excellent. Well, today we're going to be focusing all about 1031 exchanges, which is maybe one of the only things that I've yet to do, and I'm very excited about in my own real estate journey. I'm constantly trying to talk my wife into, you know what, we could 1031 exchange this property. So I'm excited to dig into this specific way to grow your real estate portfolio. But let's start by explaining to real estate investors who might not have heard of a 1031 exchange just exactly what it is and how does it support real estate investors.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'd like to start kind of at a 10,000 foot level of it and maybe even just keep it there. A 1031 exchange is named after the tax code, which is a like kind exchange. And back in the day, you used to be able to exchange an airplane for an airplane or a boat for a boat or real estate for real estate. And one of the interesting things back then was that, well, even still, is that any real estate is like kind. Could be farmland, could be an apartment building, could be anything with a deed. So, I mean, it even could be water rights or mineral rights or anything like that. Any of that can be used, is considered like kind, which seems really strange because back in the day when you could do personal property, boats and cars had to be for boats and cars. But real estate was, if has a deed, it's real estate.
Okay.
And basically the idea is it's a way to avoid paying the capital gains tax that you would normally pay when you sell a piece of property. And those can be really substantial. Yeah. An example where if you bought a piece of property for $500,000 and you're selling it for $1 million, the capital gains taxes could be in the neighborhood of $200,000. And so it's a substantial hindrance to building your portfolio if you sell one and then buy another one and go ahead and pay the tax. So it's a way to sort of keep that money. I've heard the government people kind of refer to it as a long-term loan for your tax, long-term tax loan to the rich. Right. I mean, it really, and every year it seems like there's a threat that it's going to go away.
I would agree. I swear every year there's a threat that they're going to do. And every year they don't, knock on wood, but it is an interesting way. Yeah.
It was put in place back in the 30s. So, I mean, it's been around for a very long time. And probably even back then there was discussion about, we're going to get rid of this next year. This is going to go away. Nobody's going to be able to get through it. But the basics behind it is, and sort of the way you're able to avoid paying the capital gains is, you really never sell the property. Right. The idea basically is that, while the transaction, you still have total control. You find the seller, you find a buyer, or, you figure out what you're going to buy and then you buy, you're in control of all of it. But sort of in the background, what's happening is at closing, you give a facilitator like us, you give us your property and we sell it. Mm-hmm. We hold on to the proceeds until you find the other property that you want to buy. Then we buy it, and then we give you back the property. So from the IRS's perspective, you never really sold anything. You traded something, right? And that's how you're able to sort of get away without paying capital gains, is because you never really sold something.
Yeah. And it's my understanding, and help me here because I'm trying to educate myself as well. It's my understanding that you have to go through an exchange, right? You have to have it structured in a very specific way. It's not like I personally can say, oh, well, I sold this, but I just turned around and 1031 exchange it. Like, there's a very specific process you have to go through in order to make this happen and not pay those capital gain taxes, correct?
Yes, you have to use an exchange facilitator, right? You have to use a qualified intermediary. Okay. And exchange facilitators there are ways that other people can be qualified intermediaries in there that don't have to be a 1031 exchange, put themselves out for that business. But because it's not very hard, it's not a very complex deal. Yeah. But it's extraordinarily precise. Yeah. It has to be done right. Yeah. And it's all around making sure that you as the seller don't get ownership of the money. Right. Right. That's the big piece you've got to avoid is you don't get control of that money.
Yeah. And the way that I think about it in my mind, and you can tell me if this is right or wrong, because I'm trying to educate myself on this, is basically once I put money into real estate, I just don't take it out. Like
Yes.
I put money, like I bought a property, and then that money, rather than if I take it out, I'm paying capital gains. But if I say, look, I'm going to sell this property, but I'm going to keep the money in real estate. I'm just going to buy a bigger apartment complex, or I'm going to go buy commercial real estate, whatever I'm going to do with it. As long as I keep the money out there and I don't ever quote unquote realize that income, then I'm not paying taxes on that money. Now, is it deferred if I ever sell that? Do I have to go back and pay those taxes?
Yes. So the idea is once you've traded that, you keep your basis, which for all intents and purposes is what you paid for it. But there's some your CPA will say it's way different than that.
Yeah.
Conceptually, it's what you paid for the property.
Okay.
And between that number and what you ultimately sell the last property for, you're going to pay capital gains on that whole thing. Okay. You can defer it forever and then ultimately not pay it if you still own that last piece of property when you pass away.
Right.
So you can not pay it.
Yeah.
But
it means for a long time.
But you're not going to get the benefit for that.
Yeah, you're not going to get the benefit of it. Whoever's going on is going to get the benefit.
Right. But, earlier you had said, once you put money into real estate, you kind of leave it there. I want to clarify a little bit of that because you do collect the rental income as you're going through your life, right? And so, it's certainly a way to build wealth.
Right.
Even through just cash flow.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can cash flow off that money all I want.
Yes.
I just, the money that was purchased the property has to stay out there. Which is just a huge benefit. Now, I know that there are, or maybe there used to be, and I know this again, it every year they tweak it and they talk about updating it, but is there, I think if I remember right, there's like a 45-day rule, or there's a rule of money in, money out that it's, to your point, it's very precise.
Yes.
What are the rules as they stand today as we record December 19th, 2023? Where do those stand?
The big ones you got to keep in mind is you have from the time that you close on the sale of the relinquished property, the one you're selling, until you've got 45 days to identify properties that you think you might buy.
Okay.
Now, you don't have to have a purchase and sale agreement on any of them. You don't have to have any agreement.
Okay.
You just say, oh, there's these over here that I'm thinking of buying. You're also limited to 3 of them.
Okay.
If you just pull up the MLS listing and say, hey,
I'll take these 3.
It's everything off of the MLS. I can buy anything on this list. The IRS is not going to like that, right?
Okay.
If you name any more than 3, the rules get very complicated. But if you keep it to 3,
good to know.
You got 45 days to say, I might buy 1 or more of these 3.
Okay.
And then you have 180 days from the day that you closed on the sale of the first one.
Okay.
To close on the purchase of the second one.
Okay. Okay, so you have to identify it within 45, but you have to close within 180, within 6 months.
Yep.
Okay. And also, am I correct in that the property that you're purchasing must be worth more than the property that you're selling?
To get 100% benefit of a 1031 exchange, that's true.
Okay.
There's no law that says you have to spend that.
Right. But then you're paying capital gains on anything under that. So if I sell a property, for example, if I sell a property for $300,000 and I buy a new property at $200,000, then I would be paying capital gains on that $100,000.
Yes, or whatever portion of that was capital gains.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So that even matters if you have borrowed money.
Okay.
Right. So you've got to borrow. You've got to spend at least as much as you sold the property for, because the IRS would recognize the payoff of the loan.
Okay.
As cash that you received.
As cash as you received. Okay.
Yeah. So you'd pay capital gains on that portion.
On that portion as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. For real estate investors, it is such a huge benefit. If you've ever for any real estate investor out there who has done short term, like if you flip, right? If you're a flipper, you understand capital gains. Like you get nailed with capital gains. If anybody's ever sold one of their properties, you understand how huge of a benefit this is.
Yes.
For people in real estate investing. Yes. To defer those taxes.
Yeah. One of the other rules is you have to own the property that you are selling for 2 years as investment property prior to doing the exchange. And you have to own the property that you bought afterwards for 2 years as investment property.
Okay. All right. That's good.
One of the examples or one of the things that we see quite a bit are people wanting to, they want to retire out of the, rental property business and they want to buy a condo in Hawaii to retire in.
Yeah.
Right? And, straight up, you can't do that because the second property is not investment property.
It's going to be your primary residence.
Right. Or even a vacation home, right? If you keep it as investment property for 2 years, at the end of 2 years, you can move into it.
Okay.
So, if you are thinking about a structure that sort of looks like that and you want to retire, it just takes a little bit of planning.
Yeah.
Right. So
And what determines it being an investment property? Do you just have to say you're not living in it? Because I'm thinking of, this whole short-term rental thing, Airbnb thing that's really popular right now. Can I go and say I go to Wenatchee or I go to Leavenworth and say I'm going to buy 4 homes that are 3 of them, and I'm going to turn them into Airbnb investment properties. Is that okay?
Yep, you can do that.
Okay.
But if you're staying, so there's a limit in the amount of time that you can stay in your property, and that limit is the maximum of 14 days, or 1/2 of the time that you have it rented out at full market rent.
Okay. Is that 14 days a calendar year or 14 days for the first 2 years?
Per calendar year, per tax year. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So 2 weeks. I can go to 2 weeks in Leavenworth. That'd probably do me about right.
Yep. Yeah. And, and if you rent it out at full market rent for 4 months, you can stay there for 4 months.
There you go. Okay.
And, it's the full market rent that gets kind of tricky though.
Right.
Right. I mean, what's the definition of full market rent?
Yeah.
And you're renting it to your son.
Yeah.
Right. Or somebody, and you're giving them a deal. None of that counts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you go to the store and it's always on sale. What's the actual price?
What's the actual price? Right. Yep. Yeah, same kind of thing.
Great. Yeah. I like that. Well, how has the landscape around 1031 exchange evolved, over the years? Has it evolved a lot? I mean, we talked a little bit about every year that it seems like it's going to get
it's threatened that it's going to go away.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of looking back over the history of our business from 94 until 2008, it was rocking. There was all kinds of transactions happening. There was all kinds of people that had made a lot of money. There was a lot of exchanges that were happening. And in 2008, that pretty much screeched down to zero. And from 2008 until about 2015, it kind of was just slowly building back up.
Yeah.
But there wasn't much money in the 1031 exchange business because a big chunk of how we make money is we're holding on to your money from the time you sold the one till the time you buy the next one.
Okay.
And that's the bulk of where we make our money is holding on to your money.
Okay.
And so there wasn't a lot of money in the business for most of that time, from 2008 until 15, 16, 17, interest rates were zero.
Yeah, right.
And so what we saw was a lot of people getting out of the business. And what we've seen title companies, some of the bigger title companies, pick it up as a service because they needed somebody to do it.
Okay.
And they were having a hard time finding people to do exchanges. And so a lot of the big title companies have sort of an inside sort of captured 1031 service that they offer.
Okay.
And there's very few of us out there today that are kind of independent of the title company. And so that's the big change sort of in our industry over the time that our business has been around.
Yeah. What's the benefit of going through a private exchange like you for 1031 versus going with a title company?
So our big thing is we're local.
Yeah.
Right. And for us to be able to, I mean, if you've got, we market primarily to realtors and the few title companies that don't have, that don't have
an internal.
their 1031 exchange already. Yeah. The advantage that we have is that we can come and sit down at closing with your client if they're uncomfortable about it. We can answer the questions. We have a necktie you can get a hold of. Yeah. To go, what's going on? Yeah. We can move very quickly. If papers need to get delivered to the title company, I get my car, drive over there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we got offices right now. We got an office in Walla Walla that's run by my brother. Yeah. We got an office here in Vancouver, and I got an office in Portland. Okay. And so, any of those kind of major metros, we can be there immediately. Yeah. And the money stays local. We put it into a local bank. I'm a small bank guy. Right? Yeah. And so we keep the money local, and it allows the banks to be, to loan that money out locally. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And I just, in my mind, I'm even just for my own, I'm just like, you know what? In my own mind, I would feel better and this is me personally, I would feel better. I feel like having title separate from my 1031 exchange money. I just, I feel like the more I can keep things separate, I just feel better about that. To your point too, it's also this local, it's also knowing somebody that you can reach out to. You're not dealing with, a title company who's, Lord knows how many deals they've got on the table and what they're trying to do at a time. Yep. So I kind of like that. Now they do a great service. I mean, what they do is important and fantastic. And I mean, even if they have their own 1031 exchange function, they're great companies. They do a good, responsible job. Our difference is they're gonna send that 1031 off to their headquarters to get it done
somewhere.
And your ability to get good answers from somebody that you can sit across the table with doesn't exist.
Yeah. And back to our conversation of the 1031 is very specific. Like there are very specific guidelines and, dates that you have to hit that you're going to want to make sure you've got people in place to make sure, because you mess up one of those and next thing you know, you're paying all those capital gains.
You'll be paying all those capital gains taxes, right?
I mean, it either works or it doesn't. There's no gray area. Either you're in or you're out.
Right. And, the whole thing about, it's got to be investment property for 2 more years. Yeah. Right. So I mean, you miss that or you blow that. I mean, the only way the IRS is going to find out about it is if they audit you. Right. But you get audited, they're going to find it. They're going to find, have you got full market rent? Have you stayed there too many days? Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. What are some common misconceptions about a 1031 exchange that you encounter with clients?
So part of what we've talked about, right, is really they're pretty simple. Yeah. The basics of them are pretty simple. They're just very precise. There's lots of little kind of gotchas all around that. And so, really what it is what things sort of make it complex? What are the things you can do but are pretty complicated? The first one is buying a vacation home, right? That you want to do a 1031 exchange into. Another one is if you want to do improvements to the property. You buy something and you say, hey, I sold my last place for $500,000. I'm buying another one for $400,000, but I got $100,000 worth of improvements I want to do. Right. We can do it, but it makes it much more complicated, much more complex. Okay. For lots of reasons that we won't get into. But one of the other ones is buying or selling part of this exchange from a family member. So a family member owns a piece of property, right, or wants to buy yours, and you want it to be part of that. That can make it complicated. Finding the property that you want to purchase first. Right? You go, I got a deal. I want to be able to buy this property over here, and then I want to sell this other one later. That one's called a reverse exchange. Yeah. Extraordinarily complex. Yeah. But it can be done. We advise people figure out a way to not do that.
Not do it. Yeah.
But it can be done, but it makes it complex. And so, I mean, that's part of the things is, for the most part, a 1031 exchange, if you do, one property that you're relinquishing, one property or two properties that you're buying, you're spending the same amount of money, they're investment property, super easy, super simple, that kind of thing. It's all these other little things you might want to do that make it complicated.
Yeah. If the money, and again, help me understand here, if I'm in residential real estate, can I only 1031 into residential real estate, or can I go buy farmland?
You could go buy farmland. You could buy water rights.
Okay.
You can buy anything that
has a deed.
The only differentiator is international property versus domestic property.
Okay.
So you can buy, if you own something in Spokane, Washington, you could buy something in Florida. You could buy farmland in Florida from a rental property.
But I can't buy my Tuscan villa in Italy.
You can't do that with that. But if you wanted to sell your place in Tuscany and buy someplace in France or Germany or Asia, you could.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the differentiator is domestic.
Yep.
And foreign.
International. Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, now you've really got me spinning. I might get that Tuscan villa yet if I keep this up. I have to figure out how to do that and just to keep exchanging it up.
Yeah.
I love that. So how did you get into this 1031? Was it just this, they were looking to sell, you were in a place, we talked a little bit before we were recording, you actually started a bank.
Yeah, started a bank.
And the timing of like that bank being sold and then this coming up, this was just kind of the next journey for you?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really kind of it. And yeah.
Yeah. Do you see the future of real estate investing changing and how the 1031 impacts? Do you see any of that? I mean, again, it comes up every year, but do you think this thing's going to go away, or kind of, I mean, I know we don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't think it's going to go away. I mean, I really believe they're kind of around. I certainly don't want to be saying, oh gosh, you got to do your 1031 this year because you might lose it next year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't think that's likely. It's possible, but it's not likely.
Well, and I think where we are even still, and I mean, I'm here in Seattle, but even in the state of Washington, we're still in a housing shortage, and we're not the only place. And I know this is a federal thing, but I think as long as there is especially if there's a housing shortage, one of the ways you get people to build more houses is you make it easier for people to use money they already have in real estate to invest in more real estate,
right?
To 1031. And that's a good example. Can I 1031 into a new build?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So if I have this would be something like, this would be, my wife and I bought a duplex and we want to build a duplex on the back of that property. So we could sell one of our other properties and 1031 into the building of a duplex?
No. So not onto physical dirt that you already own.
Okay.
If it's physical dirt that you don't already own, you could build something new.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I bought a blank lot.
Yes.
So if I said I'm selling my house for $500,000 and I bought this lot over here for $150,000 and I'm going to build a $450,000 duplex on top of it, I can 1031 exchange that.
Yes. The trick is got to be done in 180 days.
Got to be done in 100. Got to build that house in 6 months.
Right.
Whew. Okay. That's a tough one. But I like it. Like, I'm just trying to think through, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are some options? All right. As an active real estate investor, what are options and how do I make sure that I kind of figure out how I can, and it's so great that there are people like you, Sloan, that are out here to support realtors, to come in and ask questions and just say, does this fit? Does this not fit? What do I need to consider? So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. One of the things that we hadn't talked about yet is the title on the relinquished property has to be identical to the title on the new property. So if you and your wife own the property, you and your wife have to be the buyer.
Okay.
But or the other example that I've seen more often is you own a piece of property that you want to sell, but the new one you want to buy in your wife and you's name.
Okay.
When you do the exchange, we have to buy the new property in just your name.
Okay.
But the next day you can put her name on
But
the
then you
title.
quit claim it the next day.
Right. So yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Those
That's
are
good
all
to
doable.
know. So
yeah.
does it work the same if the property's in an LLC? So if we have property in an LLC, the new property has to be in an LLC as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Same LLC.
And we've helped people, where you've got one partner in an LLC that wants to do a 1031 exchange and one that doesn't. It's another fairly easy process. What you do is you sell the property out of the LLC first to the two individuals as undivided interests.
All right.
And then the two undivided interests sell. The one person has, title to a 50% interest in the property. And they can 1031 exchange their part of it.
I like that. Okay. See, I love this. This is all good geeky stuff. This is a great episode. This is the stuff, like, you have to know this stuff, right? If you're trying to leverage your properties and you're trying to figure out how do I get to that fourplex or that sixplex or, and especially right now, I mean, and just where my wife and I are, I mean, we've got some equity built up in some of these houses that we bought a couple of years ago. We fixed them up, the rates have got, equity is appreciated. And we're just trying to figure out how do we, there's multiple different ways to tap into that equity.
Yes.
And one of those ways to tap into that is through the idea of a 1031 exchange. Can we take a duplex and it's appreciated so much? Can we go buy a fourplex now?
Yes,
and now we've got 4 doors that are cash flowing versus 2 doors, and this, how do you think through what that means for us?
Yeah. And that is the bulk of our clients.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is they're building this thing. Once you've built up equity, now instead of having a piece of property that you've got 50% equity in, you leverage it up to something that you've got, 10% equity in.
Right.
10 or 20% equity.
And so we can do that. So I'm just like walking through my mind here. I sell, let's say I sell this property for 500,000. I'm going to go buy this property for $1 million. I can use this 500,000 as a down payment and then take a loan out of that other 500,000. So my loan payment really hasn't changed. I just own more.
You just own more property, right? Yeah.
I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, how do we get to our goal faster? That's what I want. I just need to get to my goal faster.
Right.
That's awesome. What are some advice you have maybe to give to first-time investors, first-time investors who are starting here, their investing journey in 2023 or 2024 when this comes out? Any advice for just first-time real estate investors?
First-time real estate investors, you got to build up equity before you're going to do a 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
But my advice for people who have been in the business and want to do their first 1031 exchange or are contemplating doing a 1031 exchange, talk to us early, get us involved early. And if you're a broker that's dealing with a client that's got, talk to us. There is ways to get these things structured. It's in an LLC, but we don't want, one partner wants them, one partner doesn't. How do we do this? Talk to us because we've been there, done that.
Yeah.
And, or it can't be done.
Yeah.
Right.
Or it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Right. We've been there, done that in most of these situations. We know how to get it through.
Yeah.
But there's certain hoops you have to jump through to make sure that it stays a 1031 exchange and doesn't become taxable.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, Sloan, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I will just keep peppering you with questions of what if questions in my mind, but I appreciate you taking time to talk to us. If people want to learn more about you, if they want to reach out to you, Sloan, what's the best way for people to reach out and contact you?
Probably the easiest way is nwexchange.com.
All right.
And just check out our website, and we got all our contact information and everything there. That's the best way to get a hold of us.
Awesome. And we will make sure that there is a link to the northwestexchange.com in the show notes, so people can just click on the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast. There will be a link there for you. One click over to Sloan, and you can learn more about Northwest Exchange and get his contact emails and give him a call or jump on a video call real quick and just start asking questions. So it's great to have somebody, when you have somebody that's really focused on just one thing and just knows it, it's so good to get those answers.
Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, call me. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
It gets all geeky.
It does get geeky. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
All right, Jeff. Thank you.